Welcome everybody. My name is Evan Smith from Advisor, and I will be your host. On the call today, we have Cleantech's CEO, Willem Vriesendorp.
Hello, everybody.
Yeah. And he'll be taking us through the latest investor presentation as well. Following the presentation, there will be a live Q&A. You may submit questions at any time using the Q&A function within your taskbar. And these will be put through to Willem towards the end after the presentation to answer. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to you, Willem.
Thank you, Evan. So thanks everybody for tuning into this investor update. It comes on the back of a raising we completed last week, where in 2 tranches we raised 5 million, the second being subject to a shareholder approval. So I will explain here a general company update, but obviously some extra attention to what we're doing with the raise and explaining the link between what we raised and our general outlook. So the slides that I present here are also can be found in the pack that we've published as part of the raise. So no new slides here, but I will explain what they mean, so that provides some additional content and context. Our mission is unchanged, so we're looking to deliver unique water treatment and metal recovery solutions, very much built around our unique technology portfolio to accelerate the transition to a circular economy. We've only recently demerged, as most of you will know, from Sunrise Energy Metals. That was on the back of serious momentum we saw in our uptake. So where we are today is an emerging leader, we would say, in our technology portfolio, with a very strong portfolio protected by an extensive number of IP. Strong momentum, so we've seen a lot of new contracts and a lot of momentum through that. Very significant pipeline, so the future growth looks very good. And substantial upside from metal recovery and graphene membranes. And today I will be speaking a bit more about those 2 areas. They've always been there, but we see them emerging now as becoming very substantial businesses by themselves. And some of the raise we did are meant to help that transition. Some recent updates. Contracts, of course, are still a major component of our business, so we're looking to sign new ones and implement them. So we're now implementing quite a lot of them, and we've, over the last year or so, we've added a few of those. You see them on the left. The last 2 bullets and the number 1 are the most recent one. 2 very prominent projects for Australia and for us as a company that I will explain a bit further later. And then we also had recently an agreement with Upwell to fund projects ourselves. Sometimes customers ask for that, and especially for governments, that's a very attractive proposition when they have limited annual budgets. So we're looking to deploy around 150 million USD in this sector to deliver BOT, that stands for Build, Own, Operate and Transfer. So it's really a way to operate for long-term wastewater treatment plants and earn annual revenues as opposed to selling a package. And then thirdly, and that's related to one of the other businesses, an MOU that we signed, that Pneumatic signed, to do piloting at one of Australia's largest celery and leek growers. So that's in vegetable processing, and it's a first pilot, and hopefully many will follow in the next period. So then on the right, you see the growth in revenues, obviously very quickly, which is driven to a large extent by what we offer. So it's driven by the fact that the market recognizes the benefits that our technologies can provide. Company and industry overview. So this is what I just briefly referred to. We're really looking at our company as 3 divisions: water solutions, graphene membranes, and direct metal extraction. And the water solutions business is probably the business most people hear most about. It's the business that's generating over 90% of our total revenues. Most people are employed there. It's the business that's already in the growth curve. So we're already generating revenues and gross margin on the projects, and the large growth is coming from that business. But then the other 2 businesses are really businesses by themselves, especially if we look towards the future. So graphene membranes is our own internally developed graphene membrane, of which I will explain a bit further. And then direct metal extraction has been with us for a while as well, but we're really looking to push that, especially in the area of direct lithium extraction, which we haven't discussed in a lot of detail before. So we'll be talking more about that in this presentation. So the market, and that's especially for the water solutions business, this is a slide that many of you will recognize. We're looking to enter this very, very large market, 50 billion, and we have been entering that market with our first project that we're implementing right now. 50 billion is large. The total water market is much larger. It's often estimated to be 500 billion, and that's intentional. We're not looking to become a general water treatment supplier or general solution supplier. There are plenty of them, and we're not looking to compete in those fields. We're really looking at those areas where there's a strong need, and we see a strong gap in the market of proper technologies that can tackle some of the more challenging problems. And those challenging problems are emerging at the moment for a number of reasons. One is climate change. So you get areas that didn't have challenges with water that suddenly do have challenges with water. Examples are Europe and the US, where droughts, for example, have recently become a much bigger issue. But also areas with a lot of rain, where suddenly something needs to be done with areas where there's a positive balance for rain. So you need to treat it before you can dispose of it if it accumulates in your basins or in your evaporation tailings, in your tailings or your evaporation ponds. So you see a number of those challenges emerging, and we have technologies that address those challenges, and that's where a lot of our demand has been coming from. And that's why we're very optimistic about our ability to continue this very rapid growth, because we see the need for better solutions, not only in Australia, but also very much in other regions. So the three sectors you see on the top, so that's industrial brine treatment, which is extremely challenging, which is therefore a very good fit for our solutions. On the right side, mining wastewater is also very challenging. Almost all the difficult problems you have in water treatment come together in many of the mining projects. And then municipal effluent reuse in particular, but also groundwater treatment. Those are areas that exist to some extent already, but where there's a huge pressure on improving the results of the technologies offered, and in particular, increasing the recycling rate and reducing the secondary waste. So for all of these three sectors, we have some very suitable solutions. So then these three businesses I showed 2 slides ago, just a few more details on those. The first, our unique water technology platform. As mentioned, we're very much technology driven. We believe that our technologies offer us both a way to grow fast, which we've been showing, and also an ability to sustainably earn high profits. So that's really the basis. And the 3 technologies you see here are the basis for our solutions. In particular, the left upper corner ion exchange technology that is different from anybody else. Resins, which are used in here, are being used in some sectors within water treatment and otherwise, but the way we use resins is very, very different. And what resins do is being extremely effective in selectively removing certain pollutants. And that can also be recovering certain pollutants, and that then includes metals, in which case it is a potential valuable addition that you extract certain metals, which is linked to our metal recovery business. In any case, our ion exchange resin technology provides a very good way to maximize recovery and minimize secondary waste. And then you see encapsulated bacteria. That's very important for nitrate removal, which is a very big problem globally. It's a big headache because current levels of nitrate in rivers and in coastal systems are often too high. So governments are looking at ways to reduce them. And we have 2 solutions there that are very suitable and cost effective to do that. I mentioned this before. This is a well-known project, but just for people that are listening for the first time, this is Townsville water treatment facility. We received an order for this. This is one of the big trends globally to recycle municipal effluent. So instead of sending it to the river or to the sea, what you really want to do is reuse it in agriculture, industry, and in some cases even for drinking water. This is a project that's quite large in Townsville, very important for Townsville's water security strategy. So we received the order for this. We're well underway with the designs and engaging suppliers. We are still working on the contract to get that over the line, which hopefully will be soon, but the project has started for all practical purposes. Secondly, another recent one, the one before that, again, a good example of the type of project we are able to win, and that's a result of the last few years development. So this is very important for the Northern Territories, a local community that has uranium in the water that came through to the drinking water, which right now cannot be used as drinking water. So we are here providing a solution that's much more robust than other solutions out there, which again, that shows an example. It's not that it didn't exist, but what we offer is much better, and therefore increase robustness and also reduce secondary waste and increase recovery. And other projects, so I won't go into too much detail, but I think it's important to emphasize how some of these projects that we're delivering, how unique they are, and how strongly they tap into new, very large global markets. So the left is the example of nitrate removal. I mentioned that before, very large market in both Europe, the US, Australia, China, where this is a major problem. And the right side is another example of such big markets that we're entering with our latest contracts. So this would be oil and gas in the Middle East, where oil and gas is also looking at ways to improve their water footprint. They really want to go to maximum, or maybe even 100% recycling. And one of our solutions here, Hyrox in this case, provides a huge step in that direction. Pneumatic, so our second business that you just saw, we have been mentioned this a bit, but it's worth emphasizing what we're trying to do here. Entering a $5 billion market. It's quite different from our first business in that pneumatic is a pure consumables business ultimately. So what you see on the left lower corner on this PowerPoint are the modules that we're looking to sell. So these are modules that from the outside are the same as the existing modules. It's just that the performance that we provide by having a graphene-based membrane as opposed to a traditional membrane is much lower energy cost. That's the main thing. So that can reduce energy cost up to 70%, which is a major focus for many companies around the world. Water treatment can be a substantial contributor to the carbon footprint of large companies, and it's a cost. So both of these benefits can be derived from using our graphene membranes. And we're looking at these markets on the right side. You see here drinking water, treated effluent, industrial wastewater, reverse osmosis as a pre-treatment for that step, and industrial separations. So these are all very, very large markets. And we are looking to enter it as a consumables supplier, meaning that total market, once you are in, becomes available. So it can allow you then to grow very quickly, because what we would be doing is working with other integrators, with engineering companies, with other water companies that would then be able to buy our membrane and provide those benefits to their customers. And so that's why it obviously is because of those benefits, you almost always automatically then also have a higher entry barrier, which we certainly had here. So we spent a lot of time developing this. Quite a lot of R&D went into this development, and we're now at that final stage where we're looking to enter the market, and first with pilots and then with ongoing sales. So as I mentioned, it's not an easy feat to achieve. So we've been working on it with a dedicated team. That's also a little bit related to this business model difference. It's a bit different from our water solutions because it's so focused on consumables and because it's so focusing on serving other water treatment companies as well. So it really fits to be a little bit separate. So this is the team you're looking at. It's Pneumatic as a 100% subsidiary of TeQ Water. And then the path, I mentioned that, so you see the path that we came from, starting from Monash University, where the first development took place, and then building it up to basically a ability for us to manufacturing it at scale, which was in 2021, and then now the field pilots. So you see that picture under 2022, the field pilots. These field pilots require a bit of time. So what you want to do, and what we're doing, is establishing those field pilots in different of your priority sectors at customers, and then you want to run it for a couple of months. And since one of the sectors we're entering is also drinking water, so you can imagine there's very high requirements there that requires quite a lot of months of piloting. But then once you're in, you have this ability to grow very rapidly and also to earn quite high margins, because as mentioned, the Entry barriers are high. So the companies that are dominating this market at the moment are some of these very large companies like DuPont that are selling those membranes that we're looking to compete against. Then the final one, direct metal extraction. So this business has been with us for a while. It is also the expertise that's in this business is also applied to support Sunrise Energy Metals, the company we demerged from. The flow sheet of that project includes direct metal extraction for cobalt and nickel. So this technology is really at the core of our direct metal extraction unit. And we're especially now looking to apply that into copper extraction and lithium extraction. And lithium extraction has been recently have seen a bit of an acceleration that I will explain now. It's certainly not been a new area to consider. We always knew that our technology could be very, very beneficial in this field, but we were really looking at the right moment and the right partners to enter. And what we're entering here, or what we're looking to enter here, is direct lithium extraction. This is a part of lithium production that is seen as a very important addition to meet the future demand. So here you see some data from McKinsey on the future demand for lithium, which is growing very rapidly, obviously because of the strong trend towards electric cars. And part of the supply will continue to come from hard rock, and some of it will come high saline brines in South America, but some of it will have to come from brines that are lower concentrated in lithium, where you can use direct lithium extraction to extract the very large amount of lithium that are there. And North America is an important area where many people are looking at to do that. And our LOI that we signed, that I will explain, is looking at that same area to extract that lithium from the brines in those areas. This is not a new field, so a lot of companies, or quite a few companies, are looking at this. It's actually happening at scale in China at the moment. So you see on the bottom here some of the plants that are using direct lithium extraction to extract lithium. It's a bit different from what we're looking to do. This doesn't include our continuous ion exchange process. The absorbent is also different. So we believe we can come into this market at a lower cost level. And by coming in at a lower cost level than any of the existing direct lithium extraction technologies, our goal is then to be able to put our foot on assets and then more profitably produce that lithium. So what are we talking about here? An LOI. So we signed an LOI with 2 partners to form a direct lithium extraction joint venture. And the 3 companies you see on the bottom there, one is Computational Geosciences, that is doing surface mappings using AI and various technologies to establish where are the high concentrated lithium brines. It's a company owned or where Ivanhoe Electric is a major shareholder, and Ivanhoe is also our major shareholder. That's Robert Friedland. So there's a good match there. And as you might have seen, Robert Friedland is also joining in the second tranche for this raise we recently did. So then us in the middle, so we are looking to employ the technology that we have for continuous ion exchange into this flow sheet. We have this deep experience from Sunrise, but also from some of the project we did in clean tech water. So within our water business, one of the projects we delivered is uranium extraction, which is really, you could say, direct metal extraction as well in the Congo. So we have that deep experience on how to apply it. We also have pilots and test facilities to support that. And then finally, the partner into this LOI is Extralit. They've developed a new absorbent for lithium, and which is a resin, so that works very well with our system, that has higher absorption capacity than what's out there. So with these 3 parties together, we're looking to achieve what I just described, which is being able to extract lithium from those brines at a lower cost point than any of the existing technologies. So this is what it sort of roughly looks at. This is the intention or the path we're looking to go through. We're obviously only at the starting point where we signed the LOI and the partners are now negotiating the JV. One reason we think we could go through this path relatively quickly is what you see in the middle box, these pictures of pilot facilities. We have those pilot facilities. They've been applied to the Sunrise project, and they're very suitable to be applied now to lithium. So with that, we can accelerate that path towards large-scale design and production, because we could, once we have an asset that we would like to take the lithium off, we can start using these pilot facilities to do the testing. So a lot of excitement, certainly within our company and within the partners of the LOI at the moment, to look into this and to make this into a large business in the next half a year to a year. The raise was partly for this as well. So the raise was especially for the piloting that you see, to bring that alive again and make that apply to lithium. So a lot of excitement, not only with us, but in the market. Obviously, lithium is a hot topic because of the expected shortages and the increase in demand. So then to summarize it, so the strong momentum overall, if you take a step back, is certainly there with our enormous growth in revenues and projects. Also, projects become more prominent and larger, so we're very confident about that. The step towards maturity and our ability to win those large prominent projects has been made in Australia. We're looking to make that same step now in other regions, so most prominently the Middle East and China, but we're also looking, as some of you know, into Europe. We recently established an office there. So while we're in that growth phase, it certainly depends a bit on which region you look at to say, are you sort of just starting, or are you really in that phase already? Then strong momentum. So obviously the momentum is there from the last, if you look at the last few years, but certainly looking forward, we see that continuing. So we're targeting another 75% revenue growth this year. Quite a bit is already in our pipelines or in our expectations due to contracts we already signed. At the same time, are we looking to reduce our cash burn? So we have, over the last few years, a number of our projects were effectively subsidized through our margin. So we sold them at very limited or zero gross margin. That was intentionally, that's what you need to do when you want to enter a new sector in a new region. But obviously that's not something we're doing today, and that's something that will result in much less negative cash. Secondly, the other two businesses I discussed, so that's lithium or direct metal extraction, and that is also pneumatic. We're obviously looking at making them either a standalone business or revenue making very, very soon, so in the next 2 years, which will then also help to minimize the cash that we need for those businesses. Use of funds, so we're looking for the 5 million again. One half of that is in the second tranche that is still subject to shareholder approval. But we're looking at these 4 things that you can see here, which I think are very aligned with our general direction. One is pneumatic. So these demonstration plants need to be built and need to be partly subsidized. That's what you have to do as a company when you really want to sort of enter into a very large market that is right now dominated by a number of these big players. But we believe that once we have our demonstration running, it will show to the market and to our customers the strong benefits that it can deliver. And we certainly see the interest in the market. Secondly, the lithium extraction, I mentioned that mostly around our pilots that we want to deploy. Then water solutions business, especially internationally, where we're, you could say, a few years behind Australia. So given that there's still some situations, especially when you work with multinational companies, and we are certainly getting their interest. Some of the big consumer goods companies, for example, are very interested in our technologies, but they're tough negotiators, so they often require you to do a rental model or to provide some subsidies to these pilots. And then finally, working capital for the company, just for our underlying business. So then looking forward, I mentioned that already, we have the 75% growth. The reasons we are confident and optimistic about that growth for the next year and for strong growth to continue afterwards are the new demonstrations in new regions. I mentioned that a few times. Access to larger scale project, also an important part of a growth company. You need to sort of take it step by step. And every time you have a larger project, you have access to, once again, larger projects. Delivery time is already going much down, so we're much faster in delivery. Our first project, so the project we delivered over the last few years, certainly took more time, partly planned again because of the need to do some extra testing and some extra design when you do it the first time. Also a little bit influenced by COVID. And then repeat business. So repeat business is our consumables. It's also pneumatic. So once pneumatic starts selling, that is a repeat business. And it's also the BOT, which in a way is a repeat business. So once we sell it under a BOT model, we will have an annual income stream. And then to wrap that all up, so as a company, we remain very optimistic about the future. We see very strong tailwinds. You see that globally also being reflected in some water companies that are doing very well also on the share market. Obviously, we don't see that in Australia at the moment, but we see that globally in the US and Europe. We're targeting strong continued growth. We believe that growth is justified, or we believe that there are a number of factors that are supporting that outlook that you see mentioned here. Then with scale, we will improve our profitability, and also as the size of the projects grows, and also as we are not anymore selling project as our first time, but often as sort of the second and third time, which means our margins can be maintained as we target them. And then finally, we have these two other business, graphene and direct metal extraction, that I hoped I made clear we believe can be very valuable and very substantial businesses in their own right. That concludes my presentation.
Right, wonderful. Thank you for that, Willem. Yes, so thank you for that presentation. Now we move on to the Q&A segment of this webinar. If you haven't already and you do have a question, please remember to submit it via the Q&A. We do have some previously submitted questions that we'll go through first, beginning with why were retail investors excluded from this raise?
Yes, that's a very good question that I got also directly. As a company, we're certainly looking to include retail investors whenever we can. We made that decision early in this race because of the advice we got about a number of challenges by including it. That has to be discussed with the institutional investors, and there was clear feedback that the interest from institutional investors might be much lower if we include that. And normally that wouldn't necessarily be a big problem, but right now I think it's pretty clear that the market is tough at the moment. Markets are down everywhere, and there are plenty of companies that are at the moment unable to raise because a lot of the institutional investors are riding out the volatility. So they're not joining many of those races. Some of them have been hurt in their portfolio as well, especially in technology, I would say. So given those challenges, we decided, again, based on that advice, to not include it. And that's certainly not something we hope to do in the future. We obviously value our retail investors very much and would like to include them in these kind of situations.
Thank you. Next question. Can you tell us more about the company's plans to fund opportunities in metal recovery, specifically lithium?
Yeah, just to emphasize the lithium story there. So we're at our LOI stage. We're negotiating the JV. We are, as this race was meant also to support that start. But the next step for growth in that area would be to raise the funds in the joint JV. So the JV is looking to set itself up and to, within that JV, acquire assets or acquire access to lithium. The JV is intended to be a lithium producer in its own right. And that JV will then raise the funds that are necessary to make that happen. So that's not meant to be on our level. Of course, there could be other areas in direct metal extraction. I mentioned copper earlier, where there might be some other needs for capital. But right now, this goal for lithium is as described. It will happen within the JV.
Wonderful, thank you. Will the company have a heightened focus on pneumatic following its recent pilot tests at Schroers & Sons?
I would say we have a strong focus on pneumatic. It's certainly an area where we will be much more explicit and much more talking to the market. That's just by necessity because we are now at that stage. We're at that stage to show the market that we're ready, and we do that through pilots. So in that sense, we have a strong focus and perhaps increased compared to the last few years, but certainly not at the cost of the other two businesses. All three businesses we see as a very substantial development that we keep looking towards growing.
Wonderful. And Willem, do you believe that the current share price is a true reflection of CNQ's offering to investors?
So I don't think it's a secret that I think our current share price seems very depressed. I think the value we have and the value we can create is many, many times larger. And in the discussions we had, even in this race, we get that feedback many times over from institutional investors and many others that look at the company and say, listen, if I look at the company and I see what you have already and what you're looking to build, and if I compare that, for example, to companies in other markets, right? So I mentioned Europe and the US, and it's no use to sort of complain about that too much, but there's certainly a massive discrepancy in the valuations you see that companies like ours get, like high technology companies providing new solutions, the interest and also the momentum that's there. So I think if you look at those regions, there's enormous momentum. And I think in Australia, it has to come back. This appreciation of how important water is and how important innovation in water is, given the many challenges that are facing the world. But right now, we don't see that. We certainly don't see it in our own share price. But I think the underlying value of clean tech water is substantially higher than what we're seeing today.
Just got a live question through. Can you explain the timing delays in finalizing the Townsville project?
I mean, for those of you following the company, the Townsville project has been 3 or 4 years in the make. So I think there's a lot of things related to that, but I think the most fundamental explanation could simply be it's a very big project, it's a big challenge. It's a local government that has a lot of other stakeholders they need to worry about. There's a lot of regulation on top of that, and there's quite a few parties involved. This project includes a fairly large pipeline as well. So I think that's the general nature of government projects or municipal projects that tend to have more reasons to be delayed. And that's in this case the same. I think that's not always the case. There's certainly exceptions. If you move to industrial, it tends to be a different story. These projects can run much closer to the timeline. But I think for municipal projects, especially this scale, it's not unexpected. And that's also to clarify, perhaps since we received the order, there might have been some delays. There's certainly some delay with signing the contract, but the underlying project is progressing. So there's no hold on that project, or there's certainly not that we've stopped doing anything. We're still working very hard on that project at the moment.
Okay, wonderful. Now that is all the time that we have left. So thank you, Willem, for your time today, and thank you all for attending Clean Tech Water's update. If you do have any other questions, please feel free to either contact myself or Clean Tech directly. We will be able to provide answers to those questions. So we look forward to hosting you again soon. Have a lovely day.
Thanks, everybody, for your attention.